This is Black Country Blokes chewing the fat.
Listen.
I've been hearing a lot lately about men don't talk, but in my experience, men do talk, just people aren't listening. So it's going to be me and a group of blokes discussing our struggles and victories through life. Warning, there may be some bad language, so apologies to all the moms, especially my own. Let's get going.
Listen.
Our vignette is the Black Country Blokes chewing the fat with me, Kev Dillon, Craig Pinches, Aaron Dew, Lee Cadman, and our special guest today is Kieran Lock. Now, Kieran's been in many a band. He's played in some massive stadiums. He's even been on tour with legend, which is Bon Jovi. But he's here today to talk about what he's done. But we see these rock stars and people in bands as these people invincible. But anxiety don't give a kipper's dick where you're playing, who you're boxing in front of. It affects us all. So, Kieran, brother, thank you ever so much for coming on.
No problem.
Let's get started. Where do you want to start it from?
Well, yeah, so anxiety and panic attacks have been the bane of my life for over 18 years now, really. I think I was diagnosed officially during lockdown with panic disorder, health anxiety and separation anxiety. I think for me, it started at college, really. I've always been anxious as a kid. Growing up, I was always the nervous kid. My mum's chucking calms tablets down my neck because I've got an exam or I've got a performance. But I think it played a big part in my secondary school life as well, because I kind of rebelled a little bit. I was a little shit in secondary school. And going through therapy now, looking back, it was 70% anxiety and 30% because I was a bit of a cock. Massively. That's what it was. I was a teenager, I had full of hormones, but at the same time I was going through in my head what I assumed everybody else was, and I kind of rebelled a little bit. I didn't want to listen to things, didn't want to do anything anyone told me, didn't like authority. And then I went to college, and yeah, I think for me that's where my kind of story journey starts, really. I had a close friend of mine pass away when we were 18. Suddenly died in his sleep overnight. Known him since I was in nursery. Was mates all through school, secondary school, primary school, secondary school, and college. Kind of wasn't the best of mates in college. We kind of found our own friendship groups, but we still connected and we still hung out and stuff. And yeah, he went home one afternoon after college with the flu. And he then didn't wake up. Died in his dad's arms at 5:30 the following morning. And
what was it, Key?
Oh, well, it's been years now, but there was loads of rumours going around saying he'd been to a gig and got hit in the head, he smoked too much weed, all this kind of stuff. But it turned out he had some really rare, I might be wrong, but it was some kind of rare heart condition that he had from a kid and just wasn't picked up. And yeah, it just got him early in life, sadly. And from that, I didn't believe it at first for a few weeks. People kept telling me, oh, Matt's died. And I was like, yeah, it's all right. So I was messaging him on Facebook or whatever, and I was like, he's fucking about. He's messing around. But yeah, he actually sadly did die. And for some reason, something triggered in my head. So I already knew at this point that my anxiety was rife. Like, I was nervous about everything. I was constantly in my own head. Then out of nowhere, I just became a hypochondriac. To the point where, because he died early, I was dying early. And in my head, that was the end game. So I spent that whole year alone convincing myself I had leukemia. And my gums would bleed and I brushed my teeth like they would normally if you've got some kind of just a gum disease or you need a simple treatment at the dentist. But in my head, I've got leukemia. I'm going to die. I would go through brain tumours. I'd have brain tumours. I'd have MS. I'd be having a stroke. To the point where I would take myself off to the toilet at college because I was panicking so much. I'd have to go and test myself if I had a brain tumour. And by test myself, this might sound funny. Like, looking back now, it's actually quite funny. I'd sit in the toilet and I'd do this because I Googled it and it told me if I could touch my finger and my nose constantly with minimal effort, the chances are I haven't got a brain tumour. So by doing that was my reassurance. So I brought myself back down. I'd go back to college into my lecture. But then 10 minutes later, I get a pain in my left arm, and I'm thinking, God, I'm having a heart attack. And it all stemmed from my friend dying. I assumed I was going to die early like him. I assumed that was how it goes. And because I've known him all my life, I thought, well, I've known him all my life. If that's going to happen to him, it's going to happen to me. Yeah. And then my first major panic attack was actually at his funeral. As they were, sounds quite morbid, doesn't it? As they were putting his body into the ground at Worsley Church. I remember just all of a sudden being hit by a hot sweat. My heart started racing. I felt like I couldn't breathe. My hands were shaking, and I literally just a ball of sweat. And I just kind of, I remember just sitting back on this little like fence that was by the grave and just thinking, Christ, I'm gonna join him in a minute. I was like, I'm gone. And I remember as soon as it was like respectfully okay to do so, I just ran off. I ran off. I went up to Worsley somewhere, like got myself back together and went to the wake. And then literally from that day, every day I woke up and my first thought was, I'm dying today. And it could be anything. It could be absolutely anything. It could be heart attacks, strokes. I had a whole episode where I thought I had MS. I had an episode where I thought I had got a really bad heart problem. And it was nothing. It was looking back now and being on my journey now and looking back at what was causing that and triggering that. It was just me taking myself from A to Z really quickly. And I wasn't stepping back and looking at, well, actually, I've got a pain in my arm because I've been sat like this in the lesson in the lesson all day. And it was always worst case scenario. And through college, that carried on. Like there was a number of times in college where I'd get the college bus home to Quarry Bank, and then I'd get on the 222 to Russell's Hall, and I'd get the bus to the hospital because I thought in my head, I've got a brain tumour, for example. I need to seek help because I'm going to die. I'd get to the hospital, Russell's Hall. I'd get off the bus. I'd walk to the doors of A&E and turn around and go back and get the bus back home. And when I got home, my mum would be like, "But yeah, where you been? It's 6 o'clock." I'd be like, "Oh, I've just popped to the pub for a beer with the lads after college." Like, no one knew about this at all. I never told my girlfriend at the time. I never told my family. I've only just told my family this December last year. And my friends, nobody knew what I was getting. So I've kept it quiet and kept it in for 16, 18 years. And I think when I told Lee initially, he was shocked. Because you wouldn't, like me and Kev was speaking about earlier, there's a mask that you put on, and for me, I didn't want to take that mask off and feel shame, and I didn't want to feel embarrassed and feel like I'm the only one who has this feeling. So yeah, I went from literally from my whole college life being quite bad, drinking a lot to help myself mask it, to the point where I'd be blacking out drunk, waking up in random people's houses under stairs, and I'd either not go out or go out and be the drunkest, because to me it was that what was at the time was helping me deal with it. To me, I felt normal. It was making me feel normal, and it wasn't. It was making me feel 10 times worse 2 days later. And this carried on, and it carried on and carried on and carried on. And then I went to university. My anxiety was high then as well, because obviously I'm from Quarry Bank. I've never been from Quarry Bank to Benidorm. I mean, that's the only place I've been to. I've only been to Spain, Quarry Bank, Spain. I hadn't really travelled that much, and I was moving to Oxford, to Oxford Brookes University. I didn't go to Oxford Uni. I'm not that clever. And yeah, and my anxiety was like, fuck, I'm going to meet loads of new people. What if they don't like me? What if I die there? What if I'm going to get some illness and I can't get back home to my mum and dad and to the place that I feel comfortable? And in all fairness, uni kind of helped me, because it kind of disappeared my panic attacks and anxiety a little bit. I was drinking a hell of a lot at uni, and other stuff. And that also, again, was masking it, but I wasn't getting the 2-day kind of panic attack right after and the feelings. I would have the odd panic attack, but again, because I couldn't tell anybody, I'd go into my room and I'd lie in the dark and I'd just let it pass, and I'd lie under the quilt, just keep saying to myself, you're going to be okay. You're going to be okay. You're going to be okay. I'm going to the pub later. I'm seeing all my mates. We'll be fine. And I'll just give myself 10 minutes and I'll calm down. And that happened rarely at uni. And I think because of the pace of life, I was an adult then. I wasn't relying on mum and dad. I was doing my own washing, doing my own food shopping. I was going to lectures. I was going out socialising with a big group of people. I think my pace of life had changed. And I'd came into this new me almost, and I thought, yeah, I'm fine. Like, and it got to a point where I actually thought I was cured. I thought that I was fine. It was just a thing because I was a teenager and Matt died, and I got into my own head a little bit. But actually, I'm fine now. I'm an adult. I'm 21. I'm gonna be okay. And then, yeah, it just I dropped out of university purely because it was shit. I didn't like the course. I did music, but it wasn't for me. It wasn't the kind of path that I wanted to take. So I made the hard decision after. Sadly, I was there for a full 2 years, and I made some really good friends. And the friends, I think, also is what got me through it as well. I had one particular mate, Jack, who I'm still good friends with now, and I think he was one of the reasons why the panic attacks kind of put at ease, because I always knew if I felt funny in the morning or I felt like I was going to have an episode, he was only downstairs and I can go and sit with him and he'd just take it all away. A bit like the beer, but it was 8 o'clock in the morning, so I couldn't exactly go for a drink. So it was that kind of coping mechanism, if you like. And then, yeah, that kind of died off. It was ad hoc, really. And then I left uni, dropped out of uni and kind of come home, and then it just all hit me again. And that's when my slight bouts of depression came in as well. I just got home and then everything was a problem. Like, am I going to get a job? I had to sign on the dole, which was, for me, was a bit like, again, it was a bit like, I shouldn't be doing this. I've just came out of potentially a degree and getting a full-time job as a teacher or whatever. And I was like, oh, what do I do? I've got no qualifications. I've only ever worked at Mackey's and done little jobs here and there. Yeah, it was just a bit, it all just got on top of me. And I think looking back now, because I wasn't telling anybody and I wasn't speaking about it, that made me worse, a lot worse. And then I met my wife.
Sorry, before you go any further, because when you're saying about it was my arm's hurting, so I've got a heart attack, and because I couldn't breathe, I've got lung cancer. Can you imagine how bad this generation is going to be with that same problem? Because everything at the moment, you haven't got the flu, you've got the potential to corona, and I think that meant a fear that's been thrown into people from people who would consider themselves not conspiracy theorists, or people, when you've been bombarded with so much doom and gloom. I really think what is the name of that condition?
It's called hypochondriac. When you kind of think something's wrong with you, but mine kind of fell into a health anxiety as well. So the hypochondria steered the health anxiety. But yeah, you're right. I think you're totally right. I think the younger generations are going to be affected by it, because now all you've got to do is type into Google pain in my left arm and it will say heart attack in capitals at the top. And that's what gets people. That's what used to get me. I used to use Dr. Google, and I used to sit there all night on my phone reading about strokes and leukemia and get myself this absolute whirlwind.
So Kieran, like obviously with my daughter, I use Google quite a lot to search out what, if we've had, you look at doctors' letters sometimes that are sent, you're like, what the hell? What's that? It's foreign to me, these words. So I'll use it to search, but I also know I have to be in the right frame of mind to do that. Because if I do it, sometimes I'll just have to ignore that letter and just kind of go, okay, I can't deal with that now, because I know if I search Google, it just doesn't give you the.
It fills you with fear.
Yeah, it does. It fills you. It can definitely. Well, it can fill you with fear if you let it. And I know if I'm in that wrong frame of mind and I search something, it will just fill me with fear, and I won't sleep for 3 weeks until I know.
Exactly.
But on the other hand, I also use it quite often for like Google Scholar. And Google Scholar is absolutely fantastic to any research that's gone on with pretty much anything within medical and sports fields and anything like that. So you use Google Scholar and then you get actual information that is useful. So it works.
I'll have to use that. So I've not heard of that before.
Yeah, type Google Scholar, and then there's the research papers that are on there. It's just amazing, and it goes into great detail. A lot of it you won't understand, to be quite honest. It is really, really, really detailed, but it's brilliant to use.
In all fairness, I don't Google no more. I don't Google anything. My wife does that for me. So if I've got like something, and generally now I'm on my, and I'll talk about it in a bit, but now I've got better, but now I'm on my journey. I call it a journey of self-improvement rather than a recovery or anything. Like, I feel like It's just getting to a better version and a happier version of myself. Sorry, that light's really bright. So I literally go now, genuinely like, oh, I've had this eye ache for like a week. Like I say to Soph, do you mind just Googling it for me? Just seeing if I need an eye test or what, or if I'm looking at having too much screen time or something. Like I don't go in the first minute. I don't go, oh, I've got a pain in my left eye. I've got cancer of the eye, which is what I would have done. And yeah, so she's great because she'll be like on Google and she'll go, you haven't got a brain tumor, you haven't got cancer, you need an eye test, you Wally. I'll be like, oh, thank you, and then I'll be all right then. But yeah, it's Google's a horrible place. I don't advise anyone who.
I think that's great advice, actually. To if someone does do the same as what Kieran was doing, he's actually asking someone else to then search that symptom, because they'll cut out the bad, won't they? Basically, and just go. It makes more sense that you've just got this, or you just need to do this.
Idea because she's obviously so logical and she doesn't get a headache and think she's dying. She just get a headache and goes, oh, I need paracetamol and have a nap. Where I'm like in my head, when I used to get a headache, I was planning my funeral in my head and what song I was going to have and everything. Like it was, and it's funny now because I can, because I'm better, I can laugh about it. And looking back, it's like, shit, like that's kind of thing. But now she literally go, what's up with you? You seem a bit anxious there. I'll go, oh, I've had this pain in my leg for like a week now. Do you mind just having a look? She'll be like, yeah, hang on a minute. And if it's nothing, she won't say anything. She'll go, well, there's nothing here that says you've got anything, so you just need to have some muscle up and go to bed. And I was like, okay. So yeah, that is one piece of advice I'd give is, if you are going to go on Google and do like Dr. Google stuff, get someone else to do it who doesn't look at it and freak out like I would. Essentially,
the thing is, when you're in the fog and you want answers, and you're looking at it and going, you might need glasses. Oh well, no, I'm sure I've got a optic neurosis. I'm sure, and it's how our mind runs away with us, isn't it? It takes us down that rabbit hole. We were saying off camera earlier when I have panic attacks, I feel like I'm having a stroke because my face will go numb. I can't swallow, and then I have to remind myself, no, it's a panic attack. But then there's a part of my brain going, well, how about this time it isn't a panic attack? How about this time you am dying? Yeah. And it's how our mind takes us on that nasty journey, isn't it?
Yeah, it's horrible. And it's a horrible journey, and I wouldn't wish it upon my worst enemy. I really wouldn't. And like my panic attacks, they come in the form of my throat closes up.
Yeah.
And I feel like I can't breathe. And then I sweat. And I mean, my go-to is when I have a panic attack is I take my shirt off right away and I go outside, or I'm pacing up and down and I'm walking. But what I'm doing is I'm just making my heart rate faster, and I'm not helping myself. But to me, I'm like, it's that fight or flight, that pure fight or flight. And I'm literally there going, oh no, I'm going to die. And my go-to phrase is, call me an ambulance. That's what I always say. When I'm in a proper panic attack, I always say, Soph, call me an ambulance because I can't breathe. And bless her, she's learned how to like cope with and deal with the episode, and she'll kind of hold my hands on my knees and just breathe with me, and I'm fine. Yeah. 5-10 minutes, I'm absolutely fine. But yeah, going back to like university, I left university, come back home, and it came back tenfold, to be fair. The health anxiety was a big problem, and it became a family joke because I didn't tell them what I was going through. I always aired with my mum and dad. I'd say like, oh, so I've got a brain tumour, in a jokey way, because by saying it to someone who was rational thinking would say to me, oh, you haven't, don't be sad. And I'd take that off my mum because she's my mum. I'd be like, yeah, you're right, actually. Yeah, you are right. And then I feel fine again. It was all that. It was looking for positive affirmations from everybody and everywhere I could find. But yeah, and then I'd go out and I'd just be like, I'd be in Merrill, for example, and all of a sudden, that's it, I have a panic attack in the middle of Merrill. And I'd be on the phone to the missus. I'm like, I'm having a panic attack. Like, can you just talk to me for a minute? And she'd be like, yeah, just breathe. You'll be fine. Literally 2 minutes later, I'm absolutely fine. And this would be ongoing. I'd be anywhere. I'd be at work. I'd be at my mum and dad's. I'd be out. I'd be in the pub. And it would just literally hit me. And me and Kev were saying earlier, it just comes out of nowhere. You wouldn't mind if there was a reason, but I could be sat downstairs on a sofa now, put the baby to bed, make a cup of tea, have a beer, whatever. And all of a sudden, it's like a car's hit me. And I just go, boom. And I feel myself burning from the feet up, and then I get sweaty. But yeah, and then like I had small bout of depression where I just felt really negative about everything. I used to say stuff like to my missus about like, I don't want to be here anymore. Like, it's best if I'm not here because if I'm not here, I can't be having these feelings. And she's the only person that I told as well. So it was hard for her because she couldn't talk to anybody because she respected that I didn't want people to know. And she took that and like, I massively respect her for that, for doing that. But it was also hard for her to have me sat in Wetherspoons on a Saturday afternoon having a beer and a burger, and I burst into tears crying because I don't know what's going on. And that happened a couple of times. I'd be sat having my dinner with her, and all of a sudden I'd just be in the middle of the pub crying my eyes out, and I don't know why. And yeah, I just got to a point where it was all really just, it was like a massive weight on me. It was the health anxiety, the hypochondria, the depression. I got really bad bouts of anger as well. And I think looking back now, the anger came from, I was drinking a hell of a lot. And I've only just recently stopped drinking a lot because that was, for me, a coping mechanism. I had a lot going on. I was trying to get a job. I was trying to reassure my parents that I wasn't a failure. I know that they never saw me like that, and they was totally above board in me making the decision to leave university. But to me, I'd failed because I wanted to go and do that. And it just, I think everyone's got on top of me, and it was just like bags of potatoes on top of me, just going and going and going, and then I just caved, and I was like, I can't do this anymore. So I tried to reach out for help. Didn't work because I could have an absolute meltdown on the one night, for example, and be on the floor crying and panicking and saying stupid stuff and getting angry. But the next morning I feel absolutely fine, and I'd be like, oh yeah, I'm all right now. I'm fine. And it happened again and again, and every time it happened, I'd say to the missus, oh, I'm going to call a doctor tomorrow. I'm going to call a therapist. I want to change. And sadly, I didn't. And it kept going. And then I was just drinking more and I was drinking more. I wasn't I wasn't drinking like morning till night. It was just that beer on a night time was getting you through the day. So that was my go-to. So I'd spend all day at work when I finally got a job, which was at the Corn. And all I'd want to do is finish work and go the other side of the bar and have 2 or 3 pints, and then I'd go around the brick and I'd have 2 or 3 more. Then I'd go home and I'd have 4, 5, 6 cans, and then you know what I mean. And that was a daily thing, and I'd done that for many years. I'd have 4 cans of lager on the night and a couple of whiskies, or I'd go to the pub at any opportunity. So if I was in Maryhill, I'd have to go to Wetherspoons and have 1 pint, and I'd literally down it in 3, and I'd go because I felt anxious about going into a Maryhill. That was my medicine. That was what was helping me feel normal again. And yeah, it just kind of went on and on for years. I reached out for a bit of help. I didn't quite get there. I bought a book, which is just called Panic Attacks, which is absolutely fantastic. That helped me for a little bit. And then I went downhill again. The drinking got heavy again. The going out a lot. The just not looking after myself mentally and physically. Gigging was a big thing because music, for me, it's been a big part of my life. It always has been since I was like 11. I've been playing drums for 20 years this year. It's always been a big part of my life. But it was also a bit of a downfall as well because with the captains, we got to a point where we'd be gigging 3, 4, 5 times a week, and we'd all work full time and have missuses and have other things going on the outside, like personal stuff and hobbies and other stuff. And it gets to the point where you just find yourself, you're either in a studio or on stage, and you're always drinking. And when I'm on stage, I'm absolutely fine. But I was saying to Kev earlier, like before I go on stage, I was obviously nervous because people would always ask me, are you nervous? I'd be like, no. But I know, looking back now, when I'm anxious and nervous, I always cough, yawn, and dry heave. That is my kind of mechanisms that that I'm anxious. That's how my wife knows now. If I keep yawning or like fake coughing, she's like, you're anxious, aren't you? I'm like, yeah, I am. But I'd man it up and I'd be like, I hate using that word, but that's what I used to be like. I used to be like, no, I'm not nervous, man. Like, I do it all the time. I'm fine being a cocky twat. But when I'm on stage, absolutely fine. It's almost like all them emotions that have been going on all those years and all those days and those feelings, I let rip. And I think if you watch me play as well.
Can I just jump in on that, kid? Because something interesting you said, like fake coughing, clear the throat, and yawning. Both of them are like almost convincing yourself you can breathe and swallow, isn't it?
Exactly what it is. Exactly what it is for me. And it's got worse since COVID, the yawning. COVID,
my lungs still work, kind of thing.
Yeah, that's what I do. I find myself sat here in the day and I go,
yeah.
I take a big breath, and if I can catch that breath, I reassure myself that I'm all right. And it's weird. It's a weird thing, and I used to that a lot. But since COVID's been around, and obviously it being a lung problem, and me having previous history of hypochondria and all this kind of stuff, it played a big part. So yeah, the music stuff got me ups and downs, and yeah, I was fine at gigs, but I'd have to have 5 or 6 pints before I played. It was always that connection, and since I've started my journey on becoming a better person, my go-to and my trigger has been the alcohol. That's what's been making me feel normal, but also making me 10 times worse. And it was a vicious cycle. It was a cycle. Everything was a cycle. It was wake up, panic. I'm going to pub later, have a beer, feel fine all night. And then like when COVID hit, I got put on furlough first. And then I lost my job shortly after. And that was it then. I was kind of like, shit, I've got a mortgage, I've got a wife, I've got a child, I've got bills. Like, am I going to be able to get work with the current climate? Are people going to want me with my skill set? Is my skill set going to die out? And it was kind of worry. And I was a stay at home. Well, the first 4 weeks we was home together because nursery was closed and my wife was off on furlough too, but she went back to work quite quickly. And I was like literally hit with the realization that I'm going to have to be a stay at home dad now for the foreseeable. And without sounding nasty, I wasn't prepared for that because that wasn't how I thought last year was going to go, like millions of other people. So I just kind of let it all get back on top of me again, and it kind of just all resurfaced, and I was depressed massively. I'd have regular breakdowns on the night time mainly. I said to Lee on the phone of the week, I never thought a 2-year-old would make me cry on the stairs, and it did, because I loved it. It was amazing. I've got to see my little girl grow up for a year near enough and spend that time with her. But from a mental health side of things, I wasn't helping myself. So the whole thing got up to me. I was drinking a lot. I was buying beer every day. I was drinking every night. I was staying up till 1, 2 in the morning drinking every day, because when I started drinking at 6 o'clock, I felt normal again. I felt like me, and I didn't want it to end. So I was stopping up and I was finding any reason. Mrs. was going to bed and I was going, I'm just going to watch this for an hour, and I'll be straight in the cupboard and I'd get 2 cans out and I'd sit next to me in the can, or I'll be in the shed having a cigarette in a can. And it's like, you just realise it builds and builds and builds. And for me, the turning point for me was November the 14th last year. I was doing the loft. I was boarding the loft upstairs. And I felt a bit funny in the morning, a bit panicky, a bit anxious. Got up there, spent all day in the loft, came down, had a shower, put the baby to bed, come downstairs, Soph got me a can of beer, opened it. I had a sip. Boom. I had the biggest panic attack I've ever had in my life personally. I just suddenly went from being coherent and normal to shaking. I was literally like, I was uncontrollably shaking and I couldn't breathe, and I was pacing around. I was just shouting, call me an ambulance. I had my wife trying to calm me down. I had my father-in-law on FaceTime talking me through. He's a great man. He was talking me through what's happening to my body. He was telling me about like, oh, it's okay. You just let too much adrenaline get in, and you're just trying to fight that off now and calm down. But nothing was helping me. And like I said before, like my panic attacks I would have either 1 or 2 a day, 2 or 3 a month. But over lockdown, I was having up to 6 a day. So on bad days, I'd have about 6 panic attacks a day. And this day, this was the only one I was having, and it was a big one. It lasted for about an hour and 40 minutes. My wife timed it. And I have never actually felt like I was going to die than I did that night. And all I kept saying was, call me an ambulance, call me an ambulance. And I had my wife saying, you don't want to go to hospital at the minute because there were actually ill people there. Like, you don't want to go there with COVID. You're not ill. I promise you, you're not ill. And it was, but in my head at the time, I can't think rationally. I'm thinking that they're the ones who are telling me lies, and they can see I'm dying, but they don't want to tell me. And I'm got my shirt off and I'm running up and down the house, and yeah, hour and 40 minutes, and I just couldn't stop shaking. And do you know what I did? I got on the phone to 111, and I was about to call 111 because all I wanted was reassurance from a medical expert to tell me at that moment I was not dying, and it's in my head. And I rang 111, and just before they answered, I put the phone down. This is going to sound really silly. And I went, Soph, I'm taking the bins out, right? Out of nowhere. I just went and took the bins out. Down the side of the house, in the bin, come back in, absolutely fine. And that is all because I automatically told myself I need a distraction. And it was like at that moment, I'd had like an epiphany where I understood now how my panic attacks work. It's got to this point where I understand now that all I've got to do is distract myself, where before I'd get myself in such a tears and such a build-up of emotions, and it would take me 10 minutes to come down, but it would always play in my mind. I wouldn't have that distraction. But this time, because it was going on for over an hour, I was either saying to myself, I need help now. This is my time to reach out and get help. Or I'm actually dying. And I couldn't wait up. And I was like, well, if I take the bins out and get outside in the cold air and come back in, if I still feel like this, I'm calling 999. I've got to go to hospital. Went outside, done the bins, come back in. I played a bit of guitar actually as well, just to kind of keep myself distracted. And I was absolutely fine. And the next day I was straight on the phone to the doctors. Had a couple of like sessions with the doctor. She told me basically, well, I went through everything like I've gone through with you guys, but obviously in a bit more detail about the anger and stuff and the depression and the anxiety. And yeah, she diagnosed me with panic disorder and health anxiety, and put me on beta blockers and diazepam or something for a couple of weeks, which I took. I took them and they helped a little bit, but towards the end of the doses, I felt that they wasn't working for me. So I came off them quite quickly, and touch wood, I've been okay since. I've been absolutely, I'm meditating. I am running now. I've started running, which is a stupid idea because it's horrible.
It's hard work.
It kills me. Absolutely kills me. I just started doing that, and I think I've stopped drinking. Like, not totally. I just don't drink every day. I have a beer on a weekend. I limit myself to 4. So I'll go and buy 4 beers on a Friday, and I'll make sure I only have 2 on Friday, 2 on Saturday, or if I drink all 4 on the Friday, it's all gone for the weekend. I'll kind of like give myself like a ration almost. But that's helped as well, because going through my therapy and me on my own, looking back at stuff, the alcohol was a big part for me. It wasn't helping. It wasn't helping me at all, and I had to knock that on the head. So stop drinking, stop smoking, and stop caffeine all in the same time. It wasn't a pretty few weeks. I've got to admit, I struggled a little bit.
If you think like caffeine and alcohol, it's like any other drug. You have a peak and then you have a drop. And when we're sloshed, we're on our peak, boom, boom, boom. And then when it starts working its way out the system, like a counsellor once explained to me, you have an adult and a kid. When you're drunk, the adult shuts up and the kid's there going, wow, he's bossing up the place, eating all the chocolate. But then when the adult wakes up, he's giving the child the bollocking. And that's all the hangover is, isn't it? You've had your fun, but now you've got to pay for it. And then that makes you feel worse, because I've been silly, but now I'm having a telling off. I feel bad anyway, but now I've got myself giving me a bollocking, and now I feel worse. So then you have more beers to shut the parent up again, and that's the vicious cycle.
Yeah, it is. It's massive. It's like, and I got to a point where I was going out. I either had 1 pint and go home, or I'd drink until I blacked out. And any of my friends who listen to this, they will tell you a time where they've had to drag me out of a taxi. They've had to drag me out of being lying under something, lying in a cupboard, off a floor somewhere, normally on concrete, on a path, or like if I'm at a house party, I just used to black out and no one can wake me up. And to me at the time, I was just young and having a beer, and I could I can drink loads. But actually looking back now, it was a problem because of the anxiety. I was using it to mask up. So if I was going out, I was going out to get blackout drunk, because I couldn't see another way out of feeling the anxiety. I had a panic attack in the pub once, and I was like, shit. So I just went straight for a whiskey, because it was the strongest thing I could think of that I like. I had a whiskey. It was at the Duke in Stourbridge. I had a whiskey and I felt fine again. Then it was that going back to the alcohol. It's sad, really. And it's looking back now, it's sad to think that I had those experiences, like doing stupid shit, going to A&E because I put my hand through a window. I went to A&E because I was so drunk I fell over and cracked my head open up the waterfront. And I've even cut my own shoes off once because I was so drunk. I couldn't undo the shoelace. I was that drunk. I couldn't do my shoelace. I actually cut my Converse off with scissors in the kitchen to take it off. And it's like, at the time, it's funny, and it's a story that we tell and we've told to our friends. Like, oh, at the time you were so drunk that you cut your shoes off and like lost your jeans, which happened. but then now looking back at it, now I'm on this journey of of recovery, almost of self-improvement. Looking back, I'm kind of actually a bit sad, but it's a horrible thing to experience. And for me at the time, not letting anyone know about it, that's how I coped. That was my talking. Was I'd literally turn for a can of beer or whatever. And
but how relatable is that though? Because how many, like when we were kids growing up, and you'd have old Bert in the corner, and old Bert was a character. He'd make you howl, but every time you saw old Bert, he was sloshed. But he wasn't an alcoholic. He was a character.
Yeah.
And so when we were growing up at 15, 16, first going in the pub, and you'd see old Bert over there, and you go, he's not a drunk. It's old Bert. He's so funny.
And him. Yeah.
But you never saw old Bert's kids. You never saw old Bert's wife because he was always in the pub, sloshed.
Yeah.
So when we grew up, it was normal. But really, when you look up as a father, as you know, we all know, you look and you go, old Bert actually was a pretty sad bloke.
Yeah. And I can name a load of people that I know through like my dad's friends and stuff who look back now I know what I know, and the research I've done and the things that I've been told, and I look back now and I could probably name a handful of people. I go, actually, they've obviously got a problem, and I really want to reach out to them and talk to them. But yeah, like it's just my doctor told me an interesting but scary fact actually, that 75% or 70% of functioning alcoholics are alcoholics due to panic attacks and anxiety disorder. And I am convinced that I nearly became one of those percentages at one point, because I don't know what would happen with the ongoing lockdowns and stuff like that, and me not having a job at the time and stuff. I'm glad I got the help when I did, but it's a strange stat to think that a lot of these people that we assume on the street are crackheads or what have you, that they could just be an alcoholic who's going through the same stuff I've been through, because couldn't cope, and they let it get to them.
They didn't have the love surrounding them. And talking about that, we've got Big Sean Griffiths coming on the show over the next couple of weeks to talk about mental health. He's been on the show before talking about drug dependency, but he says one of the worst addictions we can have is alcoholism, because if you go from, I don't know, 2 bottles of vodka a night to nothing, you can die. Your body goes into fit. So he's going to be coming on, talk about many different things, but that's one of the topics, Big Sean.
Yeah, definitely. And I think one thing is people need to understand, and this isn't something that I didn't understand until recently, is that you don't have to drink a beer at 8 a.m. to be an alcoholic, or have an issue with alcohol, because those are two different things. I wouldn't say I was an alcoholic. I just had a really bad relationship with it. And I think that's something to understand. But yeah, things like that, you can go from drinking 2 bottles of vodka to coming off it for a day and having seizures and being in hospital and stuff like that. And I think it's alcohol. They say it's the most addictive thing in the world. It's a silent killer.
I've always said that saying: 1 beer is too much. 1 beer is too many. 100's not enough.
Exactly, and it's just it's scary, to be fair. But I reached out. I went to the doctors next day after that big attack. She put me through to some NHS therapy, which I'm still on the waiting list for. That's how bad of an impact COVID's had. I've done that in November. And I was told that I probably won't get on till March because of how many cases they're getting through, because of lockdown, because of COVID. So I went private for a bit just to kind of get myself like straight. And I had my last session last week. For now, it wasn't my last session forever, because I don't want to say that, but I wanted to use the tools that she gave me, which I'm using now to try and be a better person. I think I was saying to Kev earlier, the end game for me now is to be the best person I can be, the best husband I can be, the best dad and the best friend. And I feel there. I feel like I'm there. I'm obviously going up a big hill. But one of the things that has helped me massively is telling people and doing things like this, like coming on here and talking to you wouldn't have happened a year ago. For example, when you called me earlier, Kev, I would have found an excuse not to talk, because I couldn't have done it. I could not have done it. Even like with Lee, when we reconnected earlier last month and he called me, I was buzzing for it, just to be like, "How am you? How's things going?" But a year ago, I would have found any excuse. Oh, my phone's broke. I can't take calls. Just text. And like it's just like, for me, it's just small victories at the minute, and I think I'm winning, which is good. And that's my only advice is to anybody who's going through anything or anything similar to what I've been through with the panic attacks, anxiety, depression, just put your hand up. You're not going to get laughed at. You're not going to get knocked down. We live in an age now where mental health the barriers are being knocked down. And guys like yourself who do this on a weekly basis, and I've been watching for months now, and I watch 2 days a week when I can, normally all the time because we're in lockdown. And I watch it, and it's good because you're breaking barriers, you're knocking down walls, and I think that's what people need to do. Just put your hand up and don't be scared to say, fuck, I need help, man. Just, can someone, because I did that for years, and I'm sure you guys did the same thing. You didn't get help for a certain period of time, but the biggest relief for me was just putting my hand up and going, please just tell me what I need to do and I'll do it. And yeah, but I also think you want to change as well. I think as a person and what you're going through, you've got to have the need. You've got to want to change. You've got to want to do it.
There's two steps to
recovery. Going back to square one.
There's two steps, in my opinion, to recovery. First, admit you've got a problem, and then accept the help to get better.
Mm-hmm. Massively.
But Kieran, Aaron, is there anything you'd like to come into?
Sorry, I do.
No, it's your show.
I do apologise.
It's been perfect.
I don't need full stops or anything. So.
No, you've done perfect.
There's probably about 100 points, really, to be honest. There's nothing of major value other than the fact that I appreciate you sharing your story so openly and honestly, because I think there were so many facets of your story, whether it was after uni, prior to uni, that many of us can probably resonate with, especially with the alcohol, especially as lads. And, I've been to uni myself. And as you were saying some of that stuff, I was trying to think of why I was behaving the way I was behaving. So I can go 6 months without drinking. It doesn't really affect me. But if I'm in a social area and there's a lot of people around, I need to drink, or at least that's what I used to say. So I used to kind of use that as a mechanism, should I say, as mixing in and being myself. Whereas the weird thing is, one-on-one, I'm completely fine with anyone, but put me in a group, I needed that alcohol. But then all of a sudden, it'd go from being my best friend to almost the next day, my brain then turning on me and almost, having this thing. But I think what was useful was, obviously, it's brilliant you coming on here and now sharing it. It's these conversations that we need, because I didn't know then that was an issue. In fact, it's only now you've kind of highlighted it. I'm thinking maybe because of my anxiety that I've been having for the last 10, 15 years, that's why I drank. And again, I don't drink socially. I don't drink to have one pint. I used to drink to black out. That was always the kind of way that I did it.
Yeah.
So it's really, really interesting. I'm sure there's so many other people that can probably resonate with that sort of stuff. And again, this is what we're trying to do, obviously, with the podcast, is create awareness. Like you said, put your hand up, get people to put their hand up. Again, I've never had a conversation with somebody who's been considered a hypochondriac. I think it's really interesting, that perspective as well, trying to hear someone from that. So yeah, I mean, nothing else to value that I can add of value. I think it's been fantastic, mate. You carry on talking, but we did have some questions.
I can if you want.
By all means, we did have some questions, Lee. I don't know if you want to bring them up. I just thought, just in case we don't get them in.
Normally it's off Kieran. It's good to see someone else writes in.
No, absolutely, yeah.
It's Kieran's missus.
So Pete from Endeavour Care Training, I think you've answered this, but it might go back further, so I'll ask it again. So he says, "Hi guys, can I ask, does Kieran think that his anxiety stems from past trauma?"
Yeah, I think trauma is a bit of a strong word, but obviously, having therapy, I have unearthed a few things from childhood that I didn't consider trauma. Because to me, trauma is, I've witnessed someone be killed, or I've witnessed my dad beat my mum up, or I've been around this or that, I've been abused. Like, to me, that's a trauma. But actually, trauma can be anything. Trauma can be me being called fat as a kid and bullied, and I was bullied as a kid. In primary school, I was bullied massively. Like, I went home once with 30 odd bruises on my legs because two guys pinned me against the wall and kicked the shit out of me. I did go to Bridal primary school, so it's probably normal, but it's like it's that kind of things that you don't think they stick with you, but they do. And I believe that doing stuff like that and being bullied and being called fat fuck and fat ginger, I was small, fat and ginger. I had no hope. You know what I mean? I was done. I was buggered. But it kind of probably did start the anxiety, yeah. But it also made me who I am today. It kind of gave me the confidence as well to be a bit of a bubbly character. It kind of gave me that. And I kind of left primary school and went to secondary school with a whole new outlet in life, and I made loads of friends and no one bullied me. And I was kind of like, it sounds tacky, but I was kind of the cool kid at Cook School. I was the kid that people spoke to. Everyone knew me, and I knew them. It was different. Yeah, it was different. But yeah, I do think that things like bullying and things that happened in my childhood, like small things, can also add as trauma. And yeah, I think that did definitely play a part in my anxiety and how it built up through later life. Definitely.
Next question, Lee.
No, right. The comments, and I've been bringing them up as we've gone along. So,
do you want to just say thank you to the people who've written comments?
yeah. So we got Nick Townsend who's written comments. Julie Bob Dylan. So I can't see them all. So no, but we'll just thank everyone because you're making it awkward for me again.
Can I just add? Sorry, Kev. Just before you jump in, I was going to say I was reading Nick's comment about how he basically gave up alcohol in 2010. Thanks, Lee. And what's interesting is the middle of that comment where he says others around me have a problem with me now drinking soda, and I think this is an issue that we have as well. Many of us, and I'm guilty of this as well. When one of your friends is trying to stop drinking, we're almost the ones egging that person on, not really understanding the underlying reason why they're actually trying to do it. In fact, all they're trying to do is do something, like you said, on their journey of self-improvement. There's nothing worth bragging about that I can drink alcohol or that I'm going to now get intoxicated. So I think that's a really interesting one. And fair play to you, Nick, because you've done that since 2010. It's very, very difficult. I'd say most of my, let's call them sessions or drinking moments have happened a lot due to peer pressure. I don't have that restraint, but I'm getting better with it. So I just wanted to bring that up. I thought it was a really good point, an interesting point as well.
I think as well, like with me personally, on that note, like there was only one time that I wouldn't drink at the pub, and that was because if I was on antibiotics. Because of having health anxiety, I googled all this stuff about how I can have allergic reactions and I can be in hospital and stuff. So that's the only time I'd go to the pub with my mates. I'd have a pint of orange squash or a Coke or whatever. And I wouldn't say people had a problem with me, but people would like keep asking me what's wrong because I was quiet and I wasn't myself. I wasn't being a social butterfly. I was very reclusive, and people be like, "Oh, just have a beer." And it was like you say, I mean, it was that we're the ones around people who don't drink to go, "Oh, just have one, you'll be all right." And but when you felt that, it's kind of like it's not nice at all. To be fair, it's a weird one, but because I was always drinking, as soon as I stopped drinking in a pub, people were like, Are you all right? Are you okay? Yeah. I'm like, yeah, I'm on tablets and I can't have any. But because I couldn't also tell them why I wasn't drinking because I had all this anxiety going on. It was harder for me. So I used to have one Coke and leave. But yeah, I can see what Nick's saying there. It's definitely and fair play for him for doing that for 11 years.
Well, there's 2 points I want to bring up on that. I mean, the reason why we do it, and I've been on both sides when I've packed in the booze and when I know Aaron's packed in the booze. The reason why we try and get Aaron to drink them because we like drunk Aaron. We like that part of him. And
I'll tell you what, I'm a good laugh.
No, but this is why we do it. Like, and like they'll go, "Come on, Aaron, have one," because our relationship, Aaron, is we get drunk together. So I don't want to lose my drunk pal. That's why people do it. But I remember Frank Skinner talking about it because Frank Skinner's a recovering alcoholic.
Yeah.
And he says, he goes, when you pack in drink and you go, "Come on, Aaron, just have one with me." You'd never dream of doing that to a heroin addict. And go on, have one crank, and you'll be all right. But we see alcoholism different to any other addiction because alcohol is very accepted. But if you're a smoker and if you've gone, like, as Nick's gone, 10, 11 years without a fag, and you go, "Go on, just have one box, you'll be all right tomorrow." Once the monkey's back on your back, it's hard to shift it.
Massively.
Great point,
It is massively, yeah. I totally agree with that, 100%.
Craig, is there anything you want to say, bro?
I think you've answered them, like going along. I've thought of a few things and then you've answered it. I thought, well, that saves me asking that. In regards to like the drink and that, I mean, I've never really felt pressure. I used to feel peer pressure when I was in school, and that was never to drink or never to do this or the other. It was more so wearing certain clothes and that to fit in. But I've never felt anything about. I mean, I don't drink, I don't smoke. It's very rare. I can't tolerate the next day, really. But I wouldn't think of nothing about going to anywhere. We've done it before, and people have been having like vodka Red Bulls because they've been £1 or £2 for whatever it is. And I've drank water, and it's cost me like £4 a bottle. And they've been taking the piss out of me and saying like, we can get in 4 drinks for the the cost of your water. And I said, or J2O, if I'm driving and that, I'm just not a drinker. So the peer pressure, I've never really felt anything. I want to touch up on something you said about trauma, the definition of trauma, because as you say, a good many people, I think, myself included, if you ask me if I had any traumatic experiences as a kid, I'd think, well, mom and dad were together, still together. We had everything we needed. We was fed, we was watered, we was looked after. So I'd consider not having any trauma, but I was bullied all through primary school. And I think that's part of why I don't drink as well, because I feel I'm not a control freak. I suppose I've just got trust issues in some respects. Like we was on about this earlier. It's like if I was riding a motorbike, I'd go flat out, I'd go really fast. But if I was on the back of someone riding a motorbike, I'd be panicking. And they said, well, why? I said, because I'm in control. And I feel that I don't trust anyone else. And I think, like, when you have a drink in pubs and clubs or wherever it is, I've got one of them faces people just like to smack. People just, mate, if there's going to be trouble, it sort of gravitates towards me, even if I'm just dancing. So I think I like to be hyper alert. And I think that's the bullying, like having to have to be aware of the bullies and that. And, someone blacked my eye once in school. He did warn me, so I will give him that. But he said, give me the ball or I'm going to black your eye. And I said, no, and he blacked my eye. But I think them kind of trust issues and being bullied, that is trauma. So I think when you said the definition of trauma, never disregard bullying and such as that to be a trigger.
Yeah, definitely. And same as myself, I spent until I started therapy and doing my research. Trauma to me was, if someone said to me, oh, I've had a traumatic childhood, I would suddenly think the dad used to beat them up, or they were locked in a cupboard, or they were starved, they were from a broken home, stuff like that. And you just kind of relate it all to this kind of stuff that you see in the media on TV. And actually, when you look at it, and it is things like bullying and stuff like that, and being lonely as a child and everything like that, it does put into perspective. Actually, I did face some sort of trauma. But like you, I was from a loving family. I had everything that I wanted. How
old are you, if you don't mind me asking?
Me, I'm 32. I think then.
My age, so we're the same age. So I think like the bullying and that from when we were back at school, it stopped. Usually, it stopped at the school gate, and I think we need to be more appreciative now of like the youth of today. I mean, you joke about it and say a kid's trauma today is not being upgraded to 5G or having the Wi-Fi turned off or something, light-heartedly. But I think we need to understand that if you suffered that through that kind of trauma and at that level of trauma, what are the kids potentially going to suffer knowing that bullying and victimization and is 24/7 online?
Online, it's online, and you see
stopped
it now.
At the gates.
Yeah, you see it now. You see kids who, sadly, I read in the paper sometimes, young kids who have killed themselves because someone's trolled them on Instagram because they put a TikTok up of them doing a silly dance, and it's just sad, really. Yeah, and like kids like my kids and stuff, and next generation, it's going to be it's going to take a lot for them to understand it and come to terms with the fact that they've just got to plod on and not listen to it and not read it and not take it in. But like you say, when we were kids, it was left at the school gate, really. You went to school, you got knocked about a bit, you had a couple of words, a couple of names thrown at you, and then that was it. Then you went home, had your tea, you went on a kickabout with your mates, like, and then you went back the next day and it happened again. But now it's everywhere. Sadly, it's in your hand. It's on the Xbox. It's everywhere. And it's sad, very sad.
I think friends in that can be a lot more kind now, because I know they say, friendship is a license to abuse. And I totally get it. But it's only banter or it's only humour if you're all laughing. And I think I had someone that once, I dressed in denim. I was only a kid, about 15, and it was Cabrini and that back then, the hoodies and stuff. And we'd wear Cabrini out of JD or wherever it was from. And I remember going out there once, and I was in, I don't know if it was a jean jacket or a pair of jeans, and a mate of mine actually said to me, "Who's made you wear that?" And that was the first time I turned around and said, "Nobody's made me wear it. I wanted to." But I used to sing like rock and roll. My uncle's a rock and roll singer around the Black Country, or he was.
Yeah.
And I used to sing with him from the age of like 6, 7. And then when I got to like 13, 14, my mates would call for me. And I used to shout at my dad because he'd say, "Oh, such and such has called for you. I've told him you're singing with your uncle." And then when I got back, they was like, and they'd be taking the piss and ridiculing me. And I understand there's banter and there's the humour, but it's only humour if you're all laughing. Otherwise, it's bullying.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. And I've probably done that in the past to my friends. I've probably passed comment because I can't help myself. I've probably made a comment in the past, and although we've all laughed in the pub, I know they haven't, and it's kind of, I could be doing that kind of bullying, yeah. And I think, yeah, it's happened to me as well. But yeah, you are right. If it's banter and it's a laugh, everyone's got to be involved and be having a laugh with it, and it's got to be light-hearted. But past that, past the line, and it becomes bullying, sadly, yeah.
Because it does go past the line.
A question I've got to ask you, Keith, because you went on tour and you were doing you were the warm up for Bon Jovi, wasn't you? What was that like?
Like living on a prayer, mate.
No, the best thing about it was fucking hate Bon Jovi. But you know what? We watched him 3 nights out the 5 on the tour, and he's absolutely fantastic. He's 60 years old. He walks out on stage, hasn't got to say a word, and everyone's there. He's got him in his hand, and it's fantastic. He's such a professional. But yeah, the whole experience was, we won a competition through Absolute Radio, and we got to do the 5 dates. We played to about 250,000 people across 5 days, and we're playing with the likes of Star Sailor, Future Heads, Kids in Glass Houses, and it was just, it's something I'll never forget, and I talk about it a lot, and I feel a bit cringy talking about it, but it's just an experience that I thought I'd never get to do, like walking out at the Etihad Stadium on the first day of the tour to like 25,000-30,000 people who, we're just a bunch of working class lads who work in factories from the Black Country, you know what I mean? And these guys think we're rock stars, and they're cheering and they're clapping us, and it's just a really nice feeling. And we literally do what we do for 20 minutes, come off, go back upstairs, dressing room, get absolutely out of our heads because everything was free. It was a mad experience. Like, for the first day, we got on the tour bus on the van. We drove to Man City. We got off the van, and like, there's us used to dragging our own gear on the stage and setting up. We had people like security guards walking us one by one to our dressing room and sitting us there. And I was like, well, hang on a minute, what's going on with my kit? And it's been set up for me, and it's been all set up ready. And all I do is I walk down, and as I'm walking up to the stage, someone passes me my sticks, and I go and play, and I come off, pass them back, and they pack it down. And yeah, it was just, it was a great time, and it was a great friends, like the band I was in, and we're still good mates. I just had to leave for personal reasons, and yeah, it was a massive experience. And I think if anyone ever gets the chance to play a football ground, especially Villa Park, because obviously we were the local, although I'm not a Brummie, I hate that, but the newspapers, the newspapers put us down as the local lads, and we played with another band called The Enemy, and that's when the one our family came to as well. We got tickets for them to come to that one, so having our loved ones there, watching us play Villa Park. A lot of our mates come with Villa fans, so they were loving it because they was like their pride in joining the Villa, but also their best mates are playing. Yeah, it was just a crazy 5 days. It was a lot of laughs. There was a lot of tears too.
Mate, do you think that, like, you know, when they was taking you to the stage and that one by one, do you think it was the fact you was a Black Country guy and I was just making sure Bon Jovi's Marshall amps was safe?
Do you know what? You're funny saying that, you know. I was convinced at one point. It's because they knew her from Cloybank and Raleigh Regis. And they thought, hang on a minute, there's a lot of money they can take to Ashwood Car Boot up here. I know where that's going. But yeah, it was unreal, and we kind of just had to keep pinching ourselves every gig because we sat in this room, and like we had to fill out a form before the gig saying, oh, we wanted Carlin or Stella or this, that, and that, and we'd get into the room and there'd be 3 just tall as me, full of beer, and it would be gone by 2 o'clock because there's us and there's our crew. So we had our manager, our tour manager, our guitar tech, our drum tech. It would all be gone, and like the one afternoon we were just sound checking, and we just sat in the dressing room while the techs were sound checking, and I wanted a bottle of water. I literally just wanted 1 bottle of water. That's all I wanted, because I drank so much before. I was like, I need a bottle of water before I play. And our like stagehand came up, knocked on the door, and she's like, oh, hi guys, can I do you want anything? Do you want any food? Do you want anything? And I went, oh, can I get a bottle of water? And 10 minutes later, she came back with 3 crates of 24 bottles of water for me. And literally, you could get anything I wanted. I'm convinced I could have asked for anything I wanted, and they would have got it me.
But
I
Kate,
could've
on the
asked
flips, on this is your experience, as being a supporter. We can see why so many of these superstars suffer with proper addiction, can't you?
Yeah,
'Cause
and I said that right after doing that tour, because I've done bits and bobs with different people of example pro greens, the streets being one example where when I first met Mike Skinner, he come to watch me play with a local rapper from Birmingham, and he sat in the corner of what's it called now in the studio in Birmingham? I can't think what it's called, where Uproar is. I can't think what the studio's called, but he was sat in the corner, and someone told me that Mike Skinner was there and he wanted to chat with me, and I went over to him, and he had, I can't remember now, I think it was 12 cans of Red Stripe in front of him, all empty, but he was sober as a judge. And you kind of say to yourself, like, you can see why these people who've made a name for themselves get into problems with drugs and alcohol, because what they ask for, they will get. And I am convinced on that tour, if I asked for cocaine, they would have got me cocaine. And a good example of that is when I actually got to finally play with the streets at Tamworth Palace. I remember going backstage and Mike Skinner was like, "Oh, come through." And our dressing room was just divided by a curtain. He was like, "Come through here." And there was a little coffee table in the dressing room, and it had a massive bag of weed on and 6 lines of coke. And he was like, "Yeah, that's mine." And he literally just took all the lines of cocaine, rolled a spliff, and he's like, "Do you want to come out the back?" And then you come back in, and there's 6 more lines there. Someone's done it for him. It's just like, it's incredible, like the power they have, and they can just click the fingers and get what they want. And for 5 days, that's how we felt. We could just click our fingers. Like, we asked for more beer, thinking we'll get 24 cans, but we got 70 odd. And it was just like, yeah, it was just a mad experience. And you can see why, yeah, these people like the Lemmys and the Aussies and
the Amy Winehouses of the world, and
yeah,
then the problem is we have as a Joe Public, we go, look at that smackhead, look at that alky, look at that, and you think this person's got problems, and the person just keeps going, here, I don't want any more. You'll get poorly if you don't have it. You've got to talk, you've got to sing it a bit, have a bit more, a bit more. And that's the criminal. We see them as the addict, but we don't see the pimp or the best
feeder,
friend
the feeders,
who's giving it to
people feeding it to them. Yeah, and it's crazy. I think people just get carried away with it. I did doing the Bon Jovi tour. I was like drinking so much more than what I should have, because I could, because it was there, it was available, it was free, it was available, it was free, and I love a freebie.
Don't we all?
Like, I was just taking it, and even better, we were taking it all with us when we left. At the end, like 2 days in, we got wise to it, so we were like, "Oh, can we have some more beer?" So they'd been just like 72 cans of Stella up. We just took it in the back of the tour bus and drank it on our own.
Yeah, that's a black country, man.
Yeah, we literally end up with cans and cans and cans of beer in the van, and we just be drinking even more on the way back. And it's just a mad thing. And yeah, sadly, you can see the people like Amy Winehouse, Kurt Cobain's, people like that who just took it and sadly died early and young. And it's a mad industry, a very mad industry for stuff like that. Definitely. Look at Lemmy and the Ozzy Osbournes of the world. Like, Lemmy should have died way before 70. You know what I mean? But he's one of the lucky ones, I suppose.
And mate, Ozzy Osbourne's a freak of nature, eh?
There were so many different layers of conversation. I'm just going to pass it around the room. Is there anything that anyone else wants to say?
Oh, Kieran, just thank you for coming on. I'm quite shocked, to be quite honest. I've known you quite a long time, and obviously we worked at the Corn together for many years, and I wouldn't have known any of what you've really spoke about.
Yeah.
And that's the problem, really. We shouldn't have to hide it. You should have felt comfortable enough at the time to be able to talk. Talk about it, but that's you grow and you learn. Yeah, that's it. You grow and you learn.
I'm here now. I'm doing it now, and I just hope that it just helps somebody. Just one listener who's going, that's me. I'll put my hand up. That's all I wanted to do. But yeah, thanks for having me. Like, it's been a really good experience.
We also everyone's bombarding us with comments now, which is about right. As Kev's trying to wrap it up, but we're going to go through some anyway.
Of course.
So does anyone else want to take an? Aaron's quiet over there, isn't he? Leaving it all to me, mate.
Yeah, I'll leave it to you, mate.
So let me just bring this up. So, okay, so Pete from Endeavour Care Training. Unfortunately, I know Pete quite well from years ago, and he's had a cancer diagnosis, which is not the greatest prognosis as well. And he's just saying his anxiety for himself, where he feels his anxiety is more about his wife and his daughter and the members of the family and how they react and manage the news. Peter, it's all love over here, and you know, I don't really know what to say, to be quite honest. It came to a shock to us all, but keep your chin up, keep going, keep positive. I know you're trying to do that, and keep going at it. Thank you for commenting in as well.
Yeah, thank you, Pete. Lee told me the news earlier, and I just wish you all the best, brother. You know, and yeah, sending all my love.
And Nick J. Townsend, I think this is going back a bit now to when we was talking about buying the beers in the pub and your friend not drinking and you trying to persuade them. So I buy the most obvious looking red soft drink at a gig before or afterwards. I hold it with pride. You can see every crowd at the gig or pub totally different. I feel very safe and in control. But I suppose that's took a while to get to as well, to be fair, to feeling that way about it. No doubt it was harder at the start, and then now you're in your 11th year. It's easier to do.
Yeah, good. That's good going, that is.
Okay, do you agree with this? Like, whenever I packed in the booze, I'm great until 9 o'clock. But after 9 o'clock, when all my best mates in the world and me and them are on completely different levels, they're laughing at stuff that ain't funny, but they're laughing about it because you're drunk. That's when I've got to leave the party then.
Yeah, I agree. Like, that's what I do. When I was antibiotics and I used to go out with my mates, I'd probably have 1 or 2 Cokes and go home because I wanted to be like them. I wanted to be that social butterfly and have that beer to make myself feel better. But yeah, it's that 9 o'clock curfew, off home, see you later. Wake up without a hangover. That's always the best one.
And we have Pete again. Is it a bad hair day that 4 of us have hats on indoors? No, it's because no one can get the hair cut.
Kate won't let me put the central heating on.
I don't know. Yeah.
Well,
anyone else?
Anyone else?
Nope.
Not other than a thank you, mate. Again, just to reiterate what Lee said, thank you for coming on and
thank you.
Sharing your story. And I think if anyone's going to take anything tangible away from it, I mean, what's standing out to me is the definition of trauma. You highlighting that, so I think if anyone can reach something, get something tangible, it'll be that. Don't confuse the definition of trauma with something that's could have been life-threatening or a taking of a life or a beating or something like that. It could be something supposedly trivial. So that's what I think.
Definitely. But thank you for having me. Honestly, guys, keep up the good work. It's smashing. And if I can ever come over to one of your nights on a Wednesday, if I can ever get over, I will come over and I'll come and sit with you guys and have a chat and maybe go for a beer one day. Who knows?
Well, the fun and games isn't over, Key, because I always get my guests to come up with a quote or a saying that's helped them get through life. But while you're thinking about it, I'm going to give you a few seconds. We're going to be coming live as we do every Thursday this week. And what we are going to be doing is putting suggestions in a hat, drawing them out every week. So it could be soft as what do you miss from the 80s, what do you miss from the 90s, or trauma, But this week, obviously, we're going to talk about the elephant in the room with schools going back and gyms reopening. So that's what we're going to be talking about this Thursday. So please tune in with your questions, your feedback, because I think we're all thinking about it at the moment. So, Kieran, have you got any quotes or sayings that have helped you get through life?
I have actually. I've actually got 2 because I watched the show, so I've done my own work. I know what to do at the end.
I watched the show and I've never got one.
But yeah, I'm fairly big on quotes anyway. I quite like them, so I've kind of got 2. One's like that I used to look at when I started my journey of self-improvement. One's kind of where I'm at now. So the first one's by Carrie Fisher, and it's sometimes you can only find heaven by slowly backing away from hell. And I kind of read that on Pinterest when I started therapy, and it kind of stuck in me. Thinking like I'm not religious in any way. I'm not religious anyway, but I think it's such a strong quote. And I think if you do want to find peace with yourself and become a better person, you need to back away from the fire and stop burning your ass, basically. And the second one for me, which I'm living with now, is a person who lives in the past will always be depressed. A person who lives in the future will always be anxious. but only a person's living for today will truly be at peace with themselves. And for me, that's the one I'm living with now. That's for me where I'm at now. I feel like I'm at the present day and I'm at peace with myself. And that's kind of, yeah, that's the quotes of the day. Enjoy.
Well, once again, brother, thank you.
No, thank you very much.
So, guys, until we see each other next time, take care of yourselves and each other. Ta-ra a bit.
Listen.
And that's a wrap for another show. But if there are any comments or messages that you would like us to read out for our next podcast, please be in touch. There are also lots of different organisations at the bottom of this page, and hopefully they can help you or someone you care about. Please share this to spread the word. Until we talk next time, ta-ra a bit.
Listen.